Photography Kitchen night. And as always, you've got the ability to do the chat. Diane is sitting next to me, and she's going to be moderating or taking a look at the chat room. She'll smack me or throw something at me every time one of you guys has a question. So let's get started. And here we are at February 12th. I don't know, usually the days fly by. It seems that 2025 has been off to a really slow start, and I'm not even going to touch on that. We're going to go right into the hors d'oeuvres. And I've got a nice hors d'oeuvre for you. There we go. I've got some bison for you. And actually, I mean, interesting pose, interesting shot, but obviously we've got issues here. So how can we easily fix this? Let me first get I had opened my email. Let me get that closed. Okay. So if you again look at the histogram is as really as good as it can be. There's no dark, there's no black, there's no white in the image. It's just the animal was really dark, and that's how our cameras see these things. And what I want to talk about, and where I want to focus on tonight and next week, is all about color and light and how to draw the viewer to the subject. So obviously the subject here is this bison. This is in Yellowstone. I'm going to see if the mask can find this as the subject. So I click on the masking panel, and well, that was pretty easy. So let's work on this bison right away. Let's warm it up. Let's open up the shadows. And yeah, that looks a little crazy, but stay with me because we're going to add warmth to it. Add a little red, add a little saturation. And when we start adding in texture and some clarity and add in some dehaze, then it gets darker again. And all of a sudden, it looks a heck of a lot better. Let's go ahead and bring the exposure down a little bit from that. All right. Now we've got this is the mask. How about if we start to add onto the mask a little bit so we can get the reflection involved? So let's click on add. We're going to add with a brush. I do want auto mask on, but I don't want the flow to be 100%. I'm going to bring it down a little bit because I don't want it to work at the same power as it did on the primary subject there. So I've got my brush in here, make it a little bit smaller. And let's start painting in here. And you can see it just starting to bring in some of the color so that it still looks like a great reflection, but not too much. Wonderful. So, okay, that we're in pretty good shape already. Now we got to deal with the background. Let's click on the three dots up here, which is our mask. There's what we've got. And let's duplicate and invert that, which will give us everything but that mask, and work on the rest of the image. Let's let's see. Let's bring up the exposure a little bit. I want to separate it out. The foreground. Well, we need to add color. And I don't want to add no, I don't want to add too much yellow. Let's see what happens if we add some warmth to it or cool it down. Now it does need some warmth. And let's bring up the saturation. But we still need to find a way to separate out the animal from the rest of the image back there. So how can we do that? Well, we've got this mask here. I'm going to duplicate it. Not duplicate and invert, just duplicate it. And then I'm going to reset all of the things that were done to it. Because what I want to do is I want to get this mask, but I just want to get the top, the land behind it. And to do that, watch this, what we can do. Oh, I have a question already. Because, oh, the inverted mask, it included the reflection because I had added that to the mask. So even though I had the subject, as soon as I started painting in the extra area with the brush, that becomes part of the mask. We did it as an add-on. So that's the beauty of it. You can create basically any mask you want and save it. We'll do that again. Hold on. That's a good question, though. Uh, I'm going to intersect this mask with a linear gradient. And what that means is I'm going to just drag down from the top, and notice it'll allow me to come down to the shoreline, and it ignores the animal. So let's see if we can do something with this. I think I want to try to make it cooler. I want to make it kind of go off into the distance a little more, maybe a little darker, maybe a little contrast. Oh, yeah, there we go. That's better. And by the way, we're going to get rid of a lot of the background. We do not need that much. Excellent. So let's hit enter on that. Now the foreground. I think we need some cooler color leading up to the animal because your eyes go to warm colors first, but cooler temperatures of things have a tendency to kind of recede into the background. However, I also want to have a little bit of cooler temperature at the bottom of this that will also start to lead you in. So how can I get that? So again, I could use this mask. No, you know what? Let's start a new one. Let's go through this process again. I am going to, so let's do it. So we select the subject. And the question was, why did it pick up some of the reflection? And the answer is because we added to it. So with this active, if I click on add and get the brush, and let me make sure my brush is not at 100% because I don't want it coming in at 100%. And I start painting in here. That is now the mask. It's not just the subject. And you can see it in here. That's the way it's highlighted in green. So again, in this case, I'm just going to invert this, which gives me everything but that. And you still see some green in the reflection because we didn't paint it 100%. Now I just want the foreground. So I'm going to intersect this with a linear gradient again, but this time I'm going to drag it up from the bottom. So now we just get the water, and I want it to be a little more gradual. So I'm going to drag this down because remember, from here down will be at 100% of whatever I do here. From here to the black square is 100 to 50, and then 50 to 0. I want to add the cooler part down the bottom. So let's add some blue to here and see what happens. And it's a little purple, which means it's got too much magenta in it. So let's add some green. So again, remember these colors that you see in these sliders are opposites. So if something looks a little too purple, you got to add green. We're not really adding green. We're just kind of neutralizing it out. And I think something like that. Now, before we go any further, in order to really get the feeling of what it is that I'm after, I want to crop this because there's too much both above and below that we really don't need. So I'm going to hit the R key so I don't get distracted by the other stuff in the image. And this is going to change how I end up editing this. So let's say something like that. And now as I look at it, now I'm not liking the background as well. The background needs to be darker and it needs to be warmer. So let's go up to here and we can see there's our background. It's still there. Let's just go down and instead of making it cool, let's try making it warmer and darker. And there's something off about the color. Is it too magenta or too green? Actually, no, it was kind of muddy out there. Let's go there. But I'm going to bring the saturation down a smidge. And now on the foreground, this is a creative decision. What do I want the foreground to be? This thing right here that we had just created. Where'd it go? Right here. Mask 2. Do I really like the blue now that I'm looking at it? Or do I want the whole thing to be this kind of warm color? And strangely enough, I think I might like it back to the warm. Doesn't need magenta or yellow. What do you think? I think it needs a little green. Let's take a little of the magenta out of it. But the problem is now the animal has gotten a little bit lost. So now we need to go back to our bison, which is right here. There he is. And I can hit the O key if I'm not sure if I got it or not. Hitting the O will cycle the overlay or the mask on and off. Let's do that. Let's bring up the exposure a little more. I think this needs a lot more saturation. I think that's what we need to do. And I might want to bring up those shadows a little bit too. So we'll do another mask for that. Let's hit K, and I'm going to paint in here. See if we can open this up and warm it up a little bit. So I'm going to add some yellow into that, add a bunch. Let's open up the shadows. Well, we need to bring the whole exposure up. Yeah, I think that's better. And hit enter on that. Now, one thing we haven't done is any of the standard stuff to this image. So let's go ahead and add some presence, some clarity, some dehaze to the whole thing. And now it's all of a sudden starting to come together. A little bit of vibrance and saturation. And it's got this tone to it, but I'm not opposed to it. And I think there's still too much of the background. So let's come in a little bit from the both the left and the right and top. And I think we also need a vignette. So let's come down to effects and add the vignette. Now, as I'm doing this, I'm also thinking, all right, I think I want to open up this, give you a little bit of a light path coming in here. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to create a new mask. We're going to create a radial gradient, and I'm going to have it come up from the bottom to the animal. There's a very little bit of light there, but it's not enough to bother with. So I'm just going to bring up the exposure on this just to help bring it out. And I'm going to turn down the whites a little so that shoulder doesn't get too high, too hot. Let's bring that down. Yes, question. To tone down grass selection on water. Robert, was that you? Okay. If you could say that, yes. I'm not sure exactly what you mean. Do you mean the color of the grass in the water? Bring it down? Okay. All right. That's a creative decision. So the question is, how about toning down the grass reflection in the water? Let's try that. We'll just get a big brush for this one. Just make it real big. I'm going to leave auto mask on. I'm going to go to 100% here, and I'm just going to come through these areas. And so toning it down could mean two things. It could be saturation, it could be brightness. I think if we go brightness, it's going to become kind of strange looking. I think we need to leave if anything, the brightness maybe even up, but we can take the saturation down, which will add a little bit more preference to the animal. And again, as I'm looking at it, I don't know that we need the entire reflection either. And yeah, we got a nice vignette there. And I forgot to make a virtual copy of this, so let's reset one. And we did go from there as he draws in. Come on, draw in to there. So yeah, I kind of like the tone of it. Another day, I might change my mind. I might decide I want the water all blue, but tonight, that's what I'm liking. I have done this other ways. In fact, well, here's one I did that's done a completely different way. And you might like that better. I kept it darker and kept the cool in here. So again, personal preference. All right, let's move along. It's time for soup, meaning in this case, just watery things. So I've got a shot here of Castle Hill Lighthouse. This is in Newport, Rhode Island. It's a lovely spot. And let's do some of the basics first. Let's go up to the basics. So what's our goal here is we obviously want to highlight the lighthouse. And this interesting line of algae really made it an interesting, it's literally directing you to the lighthouse. So let's get rid of the distractions and fix that. So as far as highlight shadows, yeah, let's bring the highlights all the way down and let's open the shadows all the way. The blacks, when we do that, look a little too black. So let's open up on the blacks as well. Make them a little bit very dark gray. I'm going to add a little bit of texture, clarity, dehaze, and some vibrance and saturation. Now we need to do a little bit more. So now we need to get local. Sky needs to be darker. So let's go to the mask and make the sky a little darker. And I think dehaze might be the answer. Let's try that. Yeah, it's a nice thing what it did to the sky, but it gave us a really weird color. It's like it's gone cyan. And for some reason, Dehaze does that all the time. So we're going to need to fix that. So I'm going to hit enter on my keyboard and go down to the color mixer, get the eyedropper and come up to the sky. And you can see this is where the color is, and it's kind of inching over towards the cyan. You can either drag this over or simply click on Hue Shift and bring it over into the middle of the blues. And you can also decide if you want lighter or darker. Again, a little bit of a creative decision. And do you want it more saturated? The answer for that is no. Newport, that part of the country doesn't really usually have saturated blues. So let's go with that. All right, the watercolor. What do we think of that? I think it could be a little bluer. So let's get a brush and just paint over it. I'm not going to worry about the little tidal pool there. Let's add a little bit of blue into there. That looks better. And then we have this big area here that's obviously a distraction from the lighthouse. Do we need it all? No. And we have two really big cropping possibilities here. I'm going to hit make two virtual copies, Command apostrophe twice. And let's do the way when I took this, I originally saw this as a panoramic horizontally. I saw it as something like this. Maybe not quite that much. And again, I have my golden ratio up here so we can see. And now it's more about the lighthouse, but this needs burning and dodging in order to add some more light variations into the scene. So to do that, we're going to get a brush again. I can always either hit create new mask or simply type the letter K on my keyboard. And I'm going to turn off auto mask. So imagine we've got passing clouds, of which there are a lot, and we want to kind of simulate them shading this foreground here. Now, the sun's obviously coming from the right because you can see the lighthouse is lit here. I don't care. I'm going to make believe there's a cloud there because these rocks are just simply a little bit too bright. So I'm going to darken there and darken any place that to me is a distraction. Oh, I got a little sloppy. Oh, because I forgot to turn auto mask back on. That's okay because all I need to do is click on subtract sky and that gets rid of that spot. Is there anywhere else I need? I'm not sure. Let's bring the exposure down on this. Oh, that looks a lot better. Now, conversely, oh, but you know what? I also want, now that I'm looking at it, I'm going to turn auto mask on. I know this part of the lighthouse is not particularly colorful, but I want it more colorful. So, and again, if as you're painting, if it goes out of the lines, hold down the Alt or Option key, it turns it to a minus, and then I can get rid of those rocks. I want to add a little bit more saturation into this, and I'm going to add a little bit of warmth. I'm going to add some yellow into that. Yeah, that looks a lot better. And a little contrast. Very good. And I'm going to hit K one more time. I've got my auto mask on still. I'm going to get these trees here. They've gone a little bit light for me. And the color's off a little. And again, for some reason, my auto mask is not cooperating real well tonight. So let's add a little bit of blue to the greens and a little bit of greens. I want to darken them. I want to take away some of their draw because again, it's all about going to the lighthouse. Am I happy with that? Yeah, pretty much, but it needs a little bit more. I think the whole thing, I made it a little too flat. So let's bring in some contrast again. Let's add some contrast. It's about there. I might even bring the exposure down a little bit. Yeah, there we go. And let's add a vignette. And let's see what that does for us. All right, that may be me. After I made the vignette, it made it a little bit too dark. So let's bring that back up. And I think I'm happy with that. This is it's a lovely lighthouse. Let's go full screen. I'll show you the before. There's the before drawing in. There's the before, rather. Come on. Go back to where's my reset one? Let me go out of full screen. What did I pick? Did I pick the wrong thing? Thought I reset that. Let's reset that. Okay. Now we can do it. So there's our full screen. That's the raw image we started with. And there's where we ended up. And by doing the cropping and with the light, obviously now your eye goes right to the lighthouse. There is other stuff to look at, but by painting with some dark, by making it dark up in here, dark down through here, adding a little bit of darkness here, and adding a little bit of color, a little brighter color to the base of the lighthouse and darkening the sky, now the lighthouse, because it has that warmth in it and it's bigger, it's the biggest single thing in the frame, your eyes go right to it. And that's the goal. You don't really have a choice. You have to go there. And we also have this green algae here giving us a line right to it. Now, I mentioned about having a different crop. Well, what could the other crop be? If I hit the R key, let's go back to let me go back to the original. Here we go. Could I crop this like this and make that a shot? Diane says there's not enough water. I'm going to disagree with her. She likes the water, yes, and she can when she edits it, she can do that. So certainly completely different mood between the two. This is just all about the line leading to the lighthouse. Again, it's whatever you want. And are they both valid? Absolutely. Let's take a little before we get into the appetizers. Let's take a quick trip over to Paris. Yep, question. Okay, so Paula mentioned she thought there was too much magenta in bison. She almost made me say buffalo. Paula, they're bison, not buffalo. Uh, on her screen, it looks a little magenta. Sounds like you need to calibrate your monitor. However, that said, let's say for argument's sake, I need to fix this for Paula because she's about to pay me like $100,000 for this image. So Paula wants it, she gets it. Paula, I have your credit card. I'll just take care of it. Don't worry. Okay, so if it's too magenta, that's an easy one because here's magenta right in the color thing. I can just go ahead and add some green to it and maybe add a little bit of warmth and some saturation. And it's a minor change on my screen. Did it fix it on your screen, Paula? You just type it in. Okay, someone also had a question. Is the white of the lighthouse facing the sun a bit overexposed? Let's take a look. That was better. Okay, so Paul is happy. All right. Is it overexposed? Technically, it's not at all. If I put this over here, it's a little bit bright, but if you look at the histogram, it's not. However, I don't know if your monitor's calibrated when you mention something like that, and that's a problem because if you're not calibrated, most monitors are too bright until you've calibrated them. That said, it's also a good point because if I'm going to prepare this for maybe for online use rather than going out to a print, maybe I want to bring that down to play it a little safer. So let's do that. I'm in a pleasing mood tonight. So if you guys have a question or something that's bothering you, I'm in the mood to fix it for you. What's wrong with me? This isn't me. But anyway, let's do that. So I'm going to bring the highlights down on that. In fact, I'll bring the exposure down. And something else happens when you do this. You see how it's going a little yellow, which I don't like. Really, this lighthouse needs a paint job, but I don't like it. So let's add some blue into it too. In fact, as long as I'm at it, I'm going to get some other spots as well. I'm going to hit the K key because there's some like rust and stuff on here. No, no, no. Let's clean up this lighthouse. Yeah, is it really that blue? No. Actually, what I'll do is I'll bring the saturation down because it's just white. And there we go. So that was who was that? Alan. Okay, Alan, does that look better? Let me know in the chat. Does that work better for you? That's true. The comment was, we're not sure, and I've never tested this. I don't know how to test it. Is Zoom messing with the colors? If you were sitting around behind me and you saw my monitor, everything would look just hunky dory. But yes, it's possible it's Zoom, it's possible our calibrations. And somebody asked, how often do I calibrate my monitor? And the answer is, I would say my monitor is probably every other month, unless I notice something going off. I noticed my laptop was off. I was working in the library this afternoon, and I noticed my laptop seemed a little off, so I got to calibrate that again tomorrow. But other than that, yeah, about every 2 months. All right, let's see. So Alan doesn't like the rust streak either. Well, yeah. I mean, it's the thing is rusty. I could show you another lighthouse that's in really bad shape. The Newport's not good at painting their lighthouses. Okay, yes, we need to have and do another workshop in Newport and see if we can have a whitewashing party while we're there. Because there's another lighthouse called Duck Island Light. Um, let's see, where's yeah, Duck Island. So here, all right. So here's the Duck Island Lighthouse, and it's in shadow. I'm not going to do this demo tonight, so I'll just show you. But look at this thing. It really needs a coat of paint. So anyway, let's see. Someone else is the face of the bison too much like the muddy shoreline? Let's take a look. Come on back in. Actually, you're right. It is get a little lost in there. Um, let's see what I did on the second one. Yeah, that helps it a little bit. Maybe I need to. Yeah, I think I made the face a little bit too light. Let's darken the face up. You sold me on that. So let's do another brush. And as I'm looking at it, I did make that too light. So let's darken that up a bit. And darkening it up should separate it out. I got a little bit of the shoreline, so I held down the Alt key. Let's get rid of that stuff off there. Bring the exposure down. And conversely, I'm going to hit K again and get this stuff and lighten it up a bit. So we'll add a little bit more contrast. You were right. That looks better. I agree. God, listen to me. I'm like agreeing with you all tonight.
We're all laughing.
Okay. So you were absolutely right. So there
Look
you
at a
go.
nice.
Oh, what a nice buffalo. Who said that? Oh, Diane said, what a nice buffalo. Ay, ay, ay. I'm going to leave her at home when I go to Grand Teton in October. By the way, just in case any of you were considering, I put it that we're doing a master class in Grand Teton in October. And this is the first time, and I'm doing something. I just wanted to try something different. And it is a full week, it's 6 days, and it's only five photographers. That's it. That's a hard cutoff number, and we're going to be going out all day to shoot. We'll have two image editing classes, and we will have separate critiques, help sessions for everybody during the week by request whenever they want to get together and do that. Something very different. And I just put it in the newsletter. What is today? Wednesday. I guess it was in Mondays or Fridays. I forget. In any case, there was only one spot left. So if anybody's curious about that, just want to let you know. The interest is certainly there. Okay, off to Paris. So, Diane and I were in Paris, and yeah,
Weather was crappy.
the weather was but does that mean that there's not a photo here? And if you look at the exposure, as bright as this thing got with the sky behind the Eiffel Tower, look at the histogram. And that's how I exposed it. I didn't care. I looked at the histogram and thought, yeah, I'm good. I got what I wanted. So let's go ahead and do the usual. I'll open up the shadows all the way and I'll bring the highlights all the way down. And already, when we do our presence stuff, we're getting there. And just a little bit of color and a little bit of saturation. And already it looks pretty good. Let's make the sky more dramatic. So I'm going to get a mask. We'll choose the sky because it was kind of stormy. Let's bring the exposure down a little bit and let's add some dehaze into that. Oh yeah, there we go. That looks a heck of a lot better. And while I'm at it, I think the highlights are a little too bright. Let's bring those down. Question is the tower itself through here a little bit too dark? I think the answer might be yes. So we'll hit K, and I'm going to make a small brush, put it in there so you can see it. And what I'm going to do, auto mask is on. I'm going to, my flow is back up to 100. I'm going to click once right in the center of the top of the tower, right there. And then I'm going to hold down the shift key and come all the way down because that's where it's kind of a little darker. And it draws a straight line to give us a straight mask there. And then I'm going to bring the exposure up just of that to make it stand out a little bit more. And really, do I want to do anything else? Honestly, I think I'm done with this. Is the tower tilted a little bit? Let's hit the crop tool to see. And as we do it, very, very, very slightly, about that much. Is it tilted in reality, Diane says. The answer is no, it's not tilted in reality. I am going to make, I think I see this as a legal size. Let's just cut to the chase and make this a legal size print. Yeah, that's just screaming for that. And then I'll add a vignette. Now, as I look at this, this is light. The problem is I don't think we can really mess with it. I think it's going to be too much of a mess. We could try to bring it down a little bit. Let's try that. I'm going to hit Shift M to give myself a radial gradient over here. Pull it off to this. And let's subtract the subject. Hopefully it sees the tower as the subject. Good. And this is easy to subtract out too. So we'll get a brush to subtract out the trees down below. And that building off in the distance. All right, let's see if we can bring this down a little bit. We'll bring the highlights down. I'll bring the exposure. Actually, yeah, it did come down a bit. We'll bring the whites down a little bit. But see, the problem is I got to bring the shadows up now because if we make it too dark, it just starts to stand out. And we don't want it to become something your eye is drawn to. I'm going to bring the saturation way down too because we want you to go here. And I think by adding a stronger vignette, I can further bring that in. And let's select the subject one more time. Create new mask. We'll select the subject. There it is. And let's bring up the exposure on the tower a little more to separate it out. And all right, not too shabby when you consider that's what we started with. And that's where we ended up. So trust that histogram. There you have it. It's there. I mean, is this an award-winning photograph of the Eiffel Tower? No. But again, considering that's what we started with, can you recover these things? The answer is yes. Okay, moving on. What course? Oh, we're up to appetizers. All right, here's a fun one. This is actually in Grand Teton. And this is looking out through one of the cabins that's kind of in the backcountry. It was obviously a cloudy day, and you would think there's nothing here, when in reality there is. I'm gonna cut to the chase. I'm gonna add a little contrast to this, and bring up the exposure. And then what are we gonna do? The usual shadows, highlights down. And we're going to add a bunch of presence to this. This is going to be, and you can see it's actually looking pretty great already. And I think exposure up a little bit more. Yeah, that was actually easy. Now the question is, do we want to force the viewer through the window a little more? Do we want to cool off this wood? Honestly, I think it kind of is cool enough, but the distant peaks of the Teton range have gone a little bit too blue. So let's get a brush and we'll go smaller on this. It's okay. You expect things to cool down as they go off into the distance, but they have a tendency to get a little too blue. Let's get that off. So we could add yellow to it, which will neutralize it. That'll make it more gray. And we can also bring down the saturation a little bit. Are we happy with that, or do we want to add a little more interest somewhere? Maybe in here. Let's try that. Let's add a little interest to this fence line just by opening up the brightness right here. What that has the benefit of doing is it's going to draw the eye. It's going to almost make you want to look out the window. Yeah, I kind of like that. And then conversely, I'm going to darken underneath this ledge a little bit right through here, just a little bit to give it a little bit of a visual base. How hard is it to take the nails out? Did somebody actually ask that? The nails are bothering Diane. You mean up in there? Okay, Diane is going right to the nails here, um, which is slightly odd, but it's actually one of my favorite parts of it. But that's okay. No, no, no. She wants to get rid of she wants to get rid of the nails. So let's get rid of the nails. How do you get rid of that? This is an AI thing. It'll make it much easier. So we'll just go to here, click on the remove the generative AI remove, and get yourself a small brush. You just want to have it a little bit bigger than you need. I'm going to get that one, and that one, and we'll click on remove and see if that makes my wife happy. And because we all know we want that to happen. And voila. And we could try the three different things it gave us. They strangely enough, they all look exactly the same. So they were universal in their thing of okay, so there the nails are gone. There's the nails back in. I
Actually, I like it
I
better.
need now she likes them better. All right, so there's what we started with. There's our raw file we started with. There's with the nails taken out. I love the texture of the wood. We did nothing fancy to this. And then I'm going to put the nails back in. And you know what? I hate to say it, with her sitting right next to me, but my wife was wrong on this one.
No,
Those nails add so much to that. Okay, so Roger said the sky at the very top of the window. When you say very top, do you mean here or the thing way above? The very, very top or just out throughout the opening here? What do you think?
Way above
Way above. This part up here is bugging Roger. We can't have that.
and on the corner also.
Oh, and right there, huh? Okay. I get it. They do have pills for that, but that's okay. So let's put before we do anything about it, let's put a little vignette in and see if that fixes it a little bit. Kind of does. Um, let's pick the sky. Would I mess with this? Personally, no, but that's okay. Let's see how we could get it. And when we pick sky, look at that. It picks that out. And if we want it to darken from here, we need it to fade in for it to be realistic. So we're going to use an intersection for this one. So we've got our sky mask. We're going to intersect this with a linear gradient. So when I click and start dragging down, you can see there's the gradient. And let's bring the highlights down a bit on that and the exposure. Bring it down a little bit. Bring the whites down. Was that dark enough for you, Roger? Does that work better?
And that's better. I was thinking maybe of cropping it off.
All right. I'm again, I am so agreeable tonight. I don't know what's wrong with me. Let's I'm gonna humor you though. Let's try it. Let's make a virtual copy and we're gonna crop it because it's bothering Roger. Let's see. If we crop that out, the answer is absolutely not. Um, all right, because this is what this thing really was. But again, since I'm in agreeable mood, let's see what AI does with it. Let's select this with the AI and tell it to remove it and see if this is the answer for Roger. Actually, I appreciate your comments because yeah, this is good for you to see that this stuff can be done. All right, one didn't work. Oh, Roger, you must be so happy. Look at that. Two got rid of it completely. Three, let's see what three is. Oh, three actually put a little knot hole in there. I like that even better.
Yeah, three is
Okay.
better.
Okay. So let's look at the two of them. There's without the holes on the top. There's with the holes on the top. And clearly the one with the holes on the top is better, but that's okay. I mean, really, look at that. Doesn't that add that one little thing, extra interest in there? Admit it. Come on, Roger, admit it. Doesn't
Yeah,
look
I
better.
like it. I like the Sky Darkened, the first one that you did. That's better.
Okay. All right. Because believe it or not, um, when I frame things like this, I look at stuff like that. When I'm on location taking a shot, one of the things I always do is I look around the perimeter of everything that's in my viewfinder when I'm composing a shot. And if something like this ends up in the shot, that is absolutely intentional because I found that more interesting. I could have moved and changed my angle and gotten rid of that, but that is that thing, that right there that we just got rid of it with AI. The image lost something because you've got this kind of absolute symmetry with the same amount of wood on the left and on the right. And this one little opening up on the top breaks that symmetry and adds interest to the frame. So consider it that way. I know you mentioned just having the sky darkened fixed it for you. I'm not picking on you. uh, but that's the kind of thing to look at when you're on location is that not being there makes this a less interesting image because the goal is to have people look at your images, be drawn in, but then have enough going on that they're going to wander. Like when Diane said initially the nails were bothering her, the nails are important. They really work there. And this up here breaks up the symmetry from left and right. Now it's not just kind of a mirror image on either side. You've got something different going on up here. It's not enough to draw you out of the frame. In fact, when you come up to here, you've got this big post here that points you right back down into the image. And even though it's going directly into the corner, in this case it works. Why? Because this is dark and this is lighter. So that's kind of my take on it. Again, you have to work for the way that makes sense for you. While we're here, let's see. Wow, it's already 8:15. I haven't gotten to the main course yet. You know what? I have another one. I have a similar kind of image, actually from almost the same location. I'll save it for next week. I was telling Diane earlier that I figure I can usually do 6 image demonstrations through the course of one of these, the photography kitchen classes. I had 41 images prepared for you tonight. So yeah, not going to happen. Ah, okay. Good question. Okay. Actually, you know what? Let's do it in this image. So, Annette's question was with the remove tool, it's leaving the eraser over the area that she's erased, so she can't see what's been done. If that is happening, you can hit what that's called is it's called the overlay, and the overlay is toggled on and off by hitting the O key. I'm guessing you probably have the toolbar turned off. So if I go to where is it? View, where is it? Show toolbar. There's stuff down here that may be turned on that is not, it should cycle on and off. Let's get this, let's just do a quick edit on this. This is, by the way, this is in York in England. It's called the Shambles. And I'll just do the usual and bring this up. And just a real quick bang, bang, bang. And I'm going to darken the sky. Oh, let's add some warmth to it. Yes, it was a rainy day, but actually this place is probably more interesting in a rainy day. So let's get the sky and darken that a little bit. I'm going to do it with dehaze. And I think I'll bring the exposure down a little as well. And then the last thing is I would crop this. By the way, when you're cropping something like this is something to look out for. Don't crop there and don't crop there. If you look in the lower right-hand corner, we've got lines going exactly into the corner. When you do this, it makes you go out of the image. It actually drains you out. If I do this, same thing, we have the lower part of that curb going right into the corner. And let me just go ahead and do that. And it's just dragging you out of the image. The answer is you either need to come below it or above it. You don't want to have anything going directly into the corner, and that fixes it. Okay, so you can see there, here's a big sign here that says the shambles. All right, what's annoying? This sign, what is this? Whatever this sign is, it's kind of annoying. So let's try the AI remove tool here and tool overlay. This is probably what you have on. It's probably set for always. That's probably why it's stuck on the screen all the time. So let's just drag over top of this sign and get rid of it. Let's click on remove. And the one, two, and threes that it gives you, that was actually pretty amazing. One, two, three. What it's changed is how it's dealt with the bricks in the background. Let's zoom in a bit so we can see better. So one, two. There's something else that got added there. You could go with this, but then you'd have to fix that. And three. I think three is the best one in this case. Now, what I'm guessing is, let's do one more and try it with that other setting. I'm guessing that the tech tool overlay is not set for auto. Let's get rid of another sign. Oh, this Statue of Liberty thing does not belong here. So let's get rid of that and the one underneath it. This time I will, let's do this first. I'm going to set it for always and see if that is the problem that you're running into. Let's see, after if I click remove, if it's still there. No. In that case, I'm not sure what's going on. Check there. Check to see if it's one of those tools. One, two. Oh, two is nice. Three is a mess. In that case, two is the best choice. So what it does is the generative remove thing, it just gives you three choices. And you might find that none of them are right. Like there's one little thing there. If that's the case, just run it again. It'll just keep working on it. And one. Oh, maybe like that. Is that what you're seeing? Yes. If that's what you're talking about, that's what's going on. That's the
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Okay, that's the always on thing.
Okay. Thank
All
you.
right? Sure.
Okay.
Yes. So yes, you don't want this. You don't want always. Turn it on auto, it'll cycle on and off. All right. So yeah, if you've never been here, York is a phenomenal city. And again, that quickly, before we leave here, then again, I wanted to talk about light and color. Where does your eye go? And unfortunately, this area here is too bright. We really need to darken it down. I'm going to use a linear gradient. I want to darken this whole thing down. And I'm going to add another linear gradient from the other side. So I'm going to click on Add and choose linear gradient again and come in from the left. And let's darken, we'll leave that kind of triangle of lighter part. Oh, look how cool that is. Look how you're now more focused in here. And while we're here, here's the mask that it created. Let's duplicate and invert that mask, and let's warm it up a little bit. Add some saturation. Open up the shadows a little more. Not too much. And yeah, look at the difference that just created. Now you're somewhat more focused in here. If I want to do even more, Shift M gives me a radial gradient. Let's say I want to open up this area here a little bit and bring up the exposure right there. And now your eye is following the path right into that. And again, it's the beauty of this stuff. Select that. Let's go full screen. That's the original file. Why did I shoot it this way? It's obvious. Look at the sky. I had to protect the sky because there were clouds in there. But look what the software was able to do. It had no trouble with it at all. And I don't even see a lot of noise. Yeah, there's some noise in here. because we brought up these really dark shadows. Plus, it's raining, so you really can't even tell there's the noise. If there is any noise that's bothering you, come down to detail, and we can add sharpening. Hold down the Alt for the masking, drag it across so that we just get the edges, and then click on denoise. And it will show you, yeah, you can see there's some color noise in there. Again, this is cheating because it shows it to you at 300%, which is kind of silly. Oh, I have both the raw and the original selected, so it's going to go ahead and denoise both of those. Ready to move on? Okay. Got to get to the main course here. All right, main course. I got a couple of main courses. You guys want to do kind of a weird barn, or do you want to do a panoramic of Bryce Canyon? Type in the chat room. Let me know which one you want. Barn. There's a barn. Just a barn? Bryce. Okay, I knew this is gonna. Okay. Pano, yeah. Barn. All right, it's one of those. Fine. I'll do them both. You guys are staying a little late again? It's okay if we go over? Is everybody
Yeah.
thumbs up on that? All right, fine. Okay. Barn. All right, this is one of the Grand Teton barns. Really, really, really weird lighting though. And the question was, what the heck to do with this? What was going on here? Well, when we were in Grand Teton this past October, there was smoke everywhere because there was a huge fire in the Bridger Teton National Forest, and it was sending clouds everywhere. So I tried to expose for the sky, and I was successful. Again, look at, excuse me, look at the histogram. Yes, it's all this stuff over here, but it never hits white. So that means the sky is safe. So let's cut to the chase and bring the sky down. Let's just bring the exposure down on that. But it needs something. It needs some color. We could warm it up. You can warm it up or we could cool it. This is going to be a creative decision. We can go kind of artsy fartsy. I'm going artsy fartsy. I'm going to add that warmth to it just because I feel like it. And I'm going to make it more saturated. And there's some other color over in here a bit. I want to take this even further. So I'm going to click on the little rectangle here, which is our color rectangle. Let's see what happens if we add some orange to it. Ooh, I kind of like that. It's odd, but I like it. Okay. So let's duplicate and invert that mask, and let's deal with the foreground. Let's bring up the exposure and add some contrast. What else do we need? Does this need a different color? Does it need to go cooler? Parts of it do, parts of it don't. So let's add a little cool for now. Let's go ahead and add our presence into this with texture clarity, dehaze. Kind of getting weird, but I like it. I think this is because this is a really subjective one. Let's go ahead and pick the barn. Actually, it might be the subject. Let's see if it sees it as the subject. Oh, it picked up the barn and very good. Picked up the barn and the wheel. Most of the wheel. It picked up in the middle of the wheel, though. That's going to be weird if we leave that alone. So let's click on Add first with a brush. I want to get really small here and just get the top of that wheel. And then I want to subtract with the brush and get in between. Because if we start changing these, it's going to change the grass in the background and just where it's coming through the wheel, and that's going to be weird. All right, so let's add some warmth to this. We'll add warmth to the barn and the wheel. Oh, yeah, that's pretty cool. Does it need magenta? No, it needs some green. Needs to be much more contrasty. That's way too yellow as I'm looking at it. Let's come down to here and add some saturation. Now, the grass is kind of weird. It's kind of a weird color. And by the way, I played with this image a lot, trying to get it the way that I wanted, and it gave me fits. So I've got this mask, Let's invert that one, or duplicate and invert that one. And now let's subtract the sky from that. I don't know if you guys really are appreciating the power of masking now in Lightroom. Being able to do selections like this is, to me, is just, I am amazed by it. So what do I want? I want a little bit of warmth or cool on the grass. It's a mess. The lighting on here is so odd. I'm tempted to just make this thing a black and white. What do you think? And where do I want to do it as a black and white? I think I want to go into Silver Effects, but before I do that, let's do a crop. So I'm going to crop this. There's nothing going on in the sky, so I don't need that much. Don't need that much in the foreground. I think something like this. And you guys might end up hating this edit. That's your prerogative. But let's go ahead and send this into Silver Effects Pro, because I think this is destined to be a black and white, but I'm going to show you two really cool things you can do with it. So bear with me a second as this goes into Silver Effects Pro. Almost there. Come on. What's taking so long? Oh, it's opening. There it is, bouncing right there. Okay. Silver Effects Pro. And I'm going to scroll down. I already know what I want. I want high contrast. No. Let's see. Full dynamic harsh. Let's see what that looks like. Maybe not. Let's see. High structure. Let's see how that looks. It's kind of similar, but that's okay. All right. Filters. I can run this through a filter. I could hit yellow. That would make anything that's yellow lighter and anything that's blue darker. Let's see what blue does. Ooh, that's kind of interesting. I think I like that. Let's just bring down the strength of it because you can adjust the power of that blue. Yeah, I like that. Now, I want this to look like an old black and white. So I'm going to add a bunch of grain per pixel. I'm going to bring the grain per pixel down. The lower this number, the more grain you get. You can see it starting to show in the background. And then we're going to add a border to this as well. Let's go ahead and scroll down. Now, do we want toning? If you do toning in here, I can add that tone. I'm going to actually do it in Lightroom. This does have toning, but I don't want to do it here. All right, so where's our finishing adjustments? Low toning, where is it? Image borders. Okay, so let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Come on, you're going slow today. 5, I think 6. And then you can change how far it comes in. You bring the size down, and then the spread will make that border bigger. And then you can scroll the before and after from the straight black and white to the one with the border. And I think that's pretty cool. That's working for me. But I would like a little bit of tone to it. So it can do this in both Lightroom and in Photoshop. Let's let that come in. How do I tone this in Lightroom? We go to Basics. Actually, we're going to use a linear gradient. Just hit M. And I'm going to just take it right off the top of the page. With that there, I'm going to click on the color box and come over and get a little bit of tone. And I can just drag around here till I get what it is I'm after. I think something like that. And I think that's pretty good. And let me go back to the original, make a reset copy of that. So we started out with that, came to there. I didn't like it really. Ended up over here. But gee, wouldn't it be interesting to really make this look older? Because we have this old outside, but when we zoom in, it's almost a little too good. Let's send this into Photoshop. Because I have a thought. I'm going to open up another image. I had downloaded some grunge copies. This grunge wall background. Let's hit yes. I'm going to, okay, select all of that and copy it and then put it, oops, in the one we just sent in. And I'm going to paste this in. And you're thinking, well, that's kind of weird. Let's Command T that to make it a little bigger. I'm going to stretch this a little bit. It's only it's a distortion, so who cares? Yes, something like that. And what I'm going to do is change the blending mode from normal to overlay. And I'm going to bring the opacity around. Actually, I think I want this inverted. Let's hit Command I to invert that. Oh, there we go. How cool is that? Bring the opacity down. And now we have an old photo that was also a little damaged. And it's also faded a little bit. I was going to bring that down, but you know what? I like it. So I doubt that's what you were expecting, that we were going to end up there. And as I mentioned, I'll show you another one I played with. I ended up here, which is kind of odd, but I like it as well. The bottom line was this was a very odd color. And a lot of times what I'll typically do in something like this is I don't know what to do with it, and I will end up as a black and white. There's the straight black and white. I do kind of like that. I can bring the highlights down, or even bring the exposure down and add some contrast to it. Yeah, that even looks a little better. And that's kind of cool. So when you have an image like that, that is something more creative you can do with it. Not really where I planned on going tonight, but there it is. And again, that's a different take on it. Same kind of tools we were using. Diane likes this one.
I like that one too, but
Yeah.
I like the feel.
Yeah, I was going for the feel of it, and I kind of went for this kind of peachy, orange peachy sky, and I thought it kind of worked. All right, let's finish up our main course here with a Bryce Pano. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and yeah, they're really dark. But again, look at the histogram. It's getting really over to the left, so I'm going to just pick the middle of the histogram options and do the edit to it. So bring the highlights up, and again, look that quickly. There's where we are. Saturation, vibrance, that looks great. So now I will select all of them, click on synchronize, and we want everything. Just click on synchronize. And now they're all fixed. So now if I come left and right, there's that tree. This is a place, by the way, called Sunset Point, if you've ever been at Bryce. And then we go to photo, merge, panorama. And I think I shot this on a panel rig. I don't think this was handheld. We'll see in a second if that's the case. Son of a gun, I did handhold this one. Huh. Guess I didn't have my tripod with me. So what are my options? Well, boundary warp. Let's try that. Actually, that did a pretty good job. Let's just to see what else. We could do fill edges, but that's too much. Fill edges is Lightroom's version of content aware fill. This is asking way too much of it. So not the answer. You can also go halfway. Maybe you like that. And then you wanted to do fill edges or do an auto crop from here. Personally, when I go all the way, maybe a little bit less than all the way on there, because this ridge right here was getting a little off. And then I'll just hit auto crop, and there we go. So let's merge that, and we'll see what we want to do to make this image work better. I've been to Bryce bunches of times, and I never shot this exact view before. This was from this past November, and for some reason I never saw it with this tree before and from this spot, and it ended up being quite nice. So what does it need? It needs more saturation, for one. Bryce is a very orange place, and there's some contrails up in the sky. I hate contrails. They got to go. So we're not going to do AI stuff. We're just going to use the regular Band-Aid one on this, make it just a little bigger than what you need, And we're going to click once on one end, come to the other end, hold down the shift key, and it just draws a straight line from one to the other. And we can do that with any of these that we find offensive. Now, where it gets a little trickier is when we have it going behind. It failed there. I can drag where it's selecting from and say, no, select from over here. And that helps, excuse me, but the problem is now I've got it behind the needles. I'm also just going to drag across that one. Whoops. What I did there. Okay. Q. Yeah, it's the Q key for this. Let's get rid of that one. And now there's something over here that I want to go over. And this happens sometimes. You've already done something and you try to do something else and there's something in the way. All you have to do is hit the H key. H hides all of your stuff that you've done and allows you to continue to work wherever you like. So if I wanted to get rid of this with the normal tool, it's not going to work. This is where the AI part comes in. Let's see if we can get rid of this contrail this way. Well, let's hit remove and see how good a job that does. There's ways to do this in Photoshop that are a little more powerful, but let's see. Oh, you know what? It looks like it worked. 1, 2 doesn't work. 3 didn't work. 1's the answer. 1 worked fine. Okay. So let's hit zoom, go back in. Gee, what else do we want to do? A vignette. Let's hit vignette effects. And do we want to help the viewer get into somewhere? Do we want to draw a little bit of light? This area right here, right at our foot, is a little bit bright. So let's get a brush. And we're going to select this dirt and part of the tree right here. We're going to darken it and take away a little bit of saturation. Saturation also keeps you from going to something. In fact, while we're at it, I'm going to do the same into here. Now I'm going to hit K again. And this time I'm going to turn off auto mask because I want to create a light path. I want to help the viewer get right into there. Got a little bit of sky. Just click on subtract sky. And let's bring up the exposure there. Maybe add a little contrast and bring the blacks down a little. And I think we're good. Really don't think there's anything else I need to do to this. And yeah, there's a couple more contrails I didn't get. I didn't do there, but you get the point because I still have dessert to give you. Question? No questions. Okay. Let's have a little dessert. I've got 3 desserts here. I can only have time for one. Do I have any chocolate? No, I have close. All right, I'm gonna do this one next week. I just want you to see this because I found this really interesting. I'm going to bring up the information on this shot. MOS, and look at the resolution, but this was shot in 2008. How is it possibly that resolution? This was shot with a Leaf 75 back. So this is a 35 megapixel digital back. This thing, when I was shooting it, and I didn't own it, Leaf was having me shoot for them, cost $23,000 for the back, plus the Mamiya camera it went on, which brought the whole price with the lenses up to about $30,000. So that's where we were in those years back then. But I did have a picture of Diane holding the color checker, and she was only about like this big in the middle of the frame. I figured, let me try it just to see how good it's got. Strangely enough, it created a profile from it. Here it is, Leaf Aptus. And look what the color checker did for it. Now, it still needs a lot of work, but really fixed a lot. When you add the shadows and the highlights and bring up the exposure, you can see now, all right, the sky needs edit. We need to add some pop to it, but pretty cool. And when you look at for $30,000, this thing better be damn sharp. And you can see That's pretty impressive. So we'll get back to that. Instead, the Xert is going to be an iPhone shot. This is so you can see the JPEG. This is an iPhone shot. This is from Volendam in Holland, right outside of Amsterdam. And really just kind of a snapshotty kind of thing, but how can we make it better? First of all, we need to get rid of this guy on his butt bending over on the side. He's got to go. So this is before we actually know, he's got to go first. Let's go back up to this is definitely an AI thing. And we might as well get rid of those people back there too. So I'm just going to, I feel strange just even drawing over top of this guy. All right, so let's make sure we get rid of all of him. And there, that's what it's selected. And let's click on remove. One of the things the AI programs are very good at is getting rid of people. And voila, look at that. That's impressive. So let's see what 2 did. Changes the slope to,
It put something.
actually, was that there originally? I can't remember. Let me make a virtual copy and reset it. Was there, oh, it picked up the top of that thing. So it decided to make, yeah, a bucket or something. So fine, we're going to go with the little street sign. That works. Let's bring up the shadows. Again, you're thinking it's too much. It's not. Stay with me. Let's get the shadows up. And once we add our texture clarity, a little dehaze, and some saturation, pretty good. Now, what are the problems? Well, the sky is really boring. How can we add some interest to it without getting crazy? And the street, it's got a slightly odd tint to it. And again, this is an iPhone shot, and my biggest complaint with iPhones is the processing is amazing, and it's also annoying at the same time because it overly sharpens. You can see all the little halos around all the text. That's one of the things that drives me nuts. And Diane's going to tell me, Joe, you should be shooting completely in RAW, and she's right. That said, how can I finish this off and make it a better shot? So I'm going to hit the K key to give myself a big brush, turn on auto mask, and I'm going to select all of this stuff because it should be more of a neutral color if the way I remember it, right? So it's a little too warm. Let's add a little blue to it. And let's add a little green to it. And then let's bring the saturation down. And then the brightness. Because we don't want it to be the focal point. We want you to kind of start exploring inside the image. Now let's do the sky. And I don't know why I didn't start doing this earlier, but this has become one of my favorite things for a solid blue sky. Create new mask, select the sky. And again, the reason I started doing this is because Lightroom has made it easy. And that's to do the intersection. Intersecting the masks with the linear gradient is just wonderful for a sky. And I'm going to click and drag and look what it does for us. And I think something about like that. And I'm going to bring up the exposure. And by lightening, just lightening down near the horizon a little bit, it adds more interest. Plus, I still have access to it. I can change my mind as far as angle and how fast I want the transition to happen. Good. And let's select the sky one more time and make it a little bluer just by doing that. 2 more things. Okay, we have a perspective issue over here on the right. Notice how this window is off a bit. So let's come down to transform and we're going to adjust it vertically. And I'm just looking at this window. I want that window straight. I don't want to overdo it. Good. And we ended up moving it up a little bit. So let me go left and right and let's move it down a smidge so we can get that sky back. And then I'll do the automatic constrain crop. I don't like this thing right here. So let's bring up the crop tool and get rid of it. It's a distraction. It's okay if we cut through the window. Now, strangely enough, I thought that this was going to be a better crop than this. And the answer is no. Let me show you. Oh, one last thing. 2 last things. Vignette. Let's add our vignette. And let's do a linear gradient or radial gradient rather, which is Shift M, kind of in this area because the shadows got a little dark in here. We'll do that and subtract the sky. And let's open up the exposure and the shadows a little bit. That was too much. Let's warm it up a little bit too. That'll draw the eye. All right, so let's take a look at that full screen. And I mean, for an iPhone shot, it's not terrible. It's just a kind of a recording of the moment of a very touristy town. That's their sole reason for existence. But the Dutch do it right. They really do touristy stuff well. However, you would think, I'm going to make a virtual copy of this. Let's hit the crop tool again. And I'm going to guess some of you were bothered by this. Strangely enough, though, it forms a visual block from leaving the image. And if I come in and crop, say, over here and enter, watch look at the difference of before and after. Let's go full screen. There's with the little railing in the lower left. There's without it. Look how much more interesting that is because of that one little bit of railing down the bottom. And we were able to get rid of the guy with his butt there to be able to salvage and still get to keep that thing. But these little things over here form a block. So if you're exploring the image and you have a road taking you into the scene, so that's cool. If you took the road this way and this was not here, you end up leaving the image. It's actually taking you out of the image. By having this little bit of stuff here, it's just enough. It's not that much of a distraction, but it's enough to keep you in the image. And by doing that little gradient in the sky, it's a solid blue sky without a single cloud around yet. It got a little bit interesting just by putting that gradation in the sky and added some visual interest. All righty. Let's see, how much over? I went 20 minutes over. That's not too bad. Any question? Oh, somebody asked, would I replace the sky? No, I would not. Why would I not? If I replaced the sky and put clouds up in here or something, the sky would dominate the image. It would then start competing with all the stuff in down here that is what I would want somebody to look at. If I put clouds up in here, it would become a visual competition. So I'm not opposed to replacing a sky occasionally when I really think it needs it, but you got to be very careful with it because if the sky is too busy or there's too many clouds in it, it then becomes a subject that competes with the rest of the scene. So in this particular one, no, I would not. All right. Any questions? No? Are your brains full? I mean, I know I blew through this stuff, but that's why you get the recordings. So here's something you can answer for me in the chat room. I know I have a tendency to try to cover a lot of ground because I want you to get your money's worth on these things. Are the number of demonstrations I'm doing within an hour good, or would you like to see a little bit less, but for me to slow down on them? So if you can just type in the chat, as is, less, more, whatever. Good. Okay. I mean, because I want to cater this. I want to craft this to what works for best for you. And okay, everybody's saying that they like it the way it is. So I will keep this pace going. As I mentioned, I don't know how many demos we just did, 6 or 7. I had 41 prepared for tonight. So the good thing for me is I don't have to go looking for images for next week because we'll pick up where we left off. I am going to change the messaging a little bit. I want to pick images where we're going to spend a little bit more time on fine-tuning color in certain locations to create a little bit more depth in the image. All righty. Let's see. Oh, okay. So I know a bunch of you guys were with me last night. And the question came in as far as spectrophotometer for paper profiles, if you want to create your own. And what I would do is send you to Calibrite, CALIBRITE.com. And look, it's called the Color Checker Studio, I think, is what they've called it now. I have the previous version. I haven't gotten the new one. I have the i1 Studio. I don't know if you can see me in the little windows. Actually, I can stop sharing my screen now because we can be done with this. In fact, I will say goodnight and then finish this question. So that's it for tonight. I thank you again for joining me. And any questions, you know where I am. Thanks a lot and have a good night, everyone.